And welcome to Biz Buzz with Bruno, presented by Mads Theater. I'm Michael Bruno, your host, and today we are welcoming back a second time the talented Mr. Steve Knoll, who's here representing Outcast Theater and Strollers today with their upcoming production of And Then There Were None.
Yes, by the legendary Agatha Christie.
We were having a lovely pre-discussion about Agatha Christie, which is a fascinating story. But first of all, tell us a little bit about this production.
Well, the production opens this Friday, June 9th, and we run for 2 weekends. So it's we've got a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday matinee, and then the following week, Thursday night, Friday night, and then a Saturday matinee, and then I'm making the actors do it again for a Saturday evening performance on, I think that's like the 19th, 17th, something like that. Do the math. And then we're done. So 7 shows.
And now we've also discussed the fact that this has gone through so many different versions and so many different titles. And it was also a film.
It's in multiple films.
Yes.
Some good,
and some not so good.
So now
there's a you're harkening back to the original script of the very first play that she wrote.
Well, it was published it was initially serialized in a magazine, and at the time, she was a successful writer with the Poirot stories. But this is not a Poirot. This is a standalone story, and this was written more to prove that she could write. You have to remember, back then, women didn't write murder mysteries. That was a man's world, and Agatha had to deal with all this sexism just to be proven, to be taken seriously. And a lot of people still say, oh, she's the greatest female mystery writer of all time. No, she's the greatest mystery writer of all time. So this book was really kind of her attempt to really create the perfect mystery that all these other male authors were kind of in competition with each other to create the perfect, what they called a locked room mystery. And Agatha cracked the case, is what she did. And so this was really written more for her and not really ever expected to be a bestseller. And ironically, it's the best-selling murder mystery novel of all time and one of the best-selling books of all time. So the book came out in 1939. And then a few years later, she was asked to adapt it into a stage play. Well, no spoilers here, but the book has the ending is something else. We'll just say that. And she said, it was during World War II, and she's like, I don't know if audiences can really handle an ending like that. So she rewrote the ending when she did it as a play that gave it a more upbeat ending. Probably a spoiler. So that's the version then that was performed originally and has been used for the basis of almost all of the movie adaptions, is this ending, the second ending. So in the early 2000s, Agatha Christie's grandson, who now is an old man, but he controls the rights to all of her stuff. He knew that there were people doing the show and basically changing the ending back to what it originally was in the book. So he hired a writer to go through her notes to rebuild what would have been an ending that's true to the book. And that's what we're doing. So now when you get the script, it comes with 2 endings. It literally says, it's like this choose your own. It's, if you want to do the 1943 ending, go to this page. If you want to do the 1930 ending, go to this page. So we're doing the 1939, the one that's true to the book. So I think a lot of people seeing that may have seen either previous stage version or movie versions have probably not seen this ending. They might say, oh, yeah, I saw this 20 years ago when such and such did it, or I was in a production 20. We have a different ending. That's all I'm going to say. So
you're not going to do it like Clue? We're going to do a different ending on different days?
No.
We're going to make your actors suffer?
We briefly talked I'm making my actors suffer already. So trust me, I'm making a few of them. I might be and then there's none. But no, they're all troopers, and they're all it's a stellar cast. So,
And we were also saying that she was in competition with her sister, who kind of faded away into nothingness.
yeah, when Agatha started writing, her older sister was a writer, and they had a very competitive. She had a very dysfunctional childhood, and her older sister wrote short stories and all that stuff. And Agatha was more inclined to play the piano because then she didn't have to be in the spotlight. And the sister was always like, well, you don't have talent, you can't do this. So Agatha just started writing. And interesting, then she got married. She married Archibald Christie. And it was right before World War I. And then he immediately had to go off for the war. So, she basically stayed at home and wrote. And it was interesting. She did work as a nurse during the war, and it was there she actually worked in the apothecary, in like the medicine lab, and this is where she learned a lot about poisons. And this is why, if you know Agatha Christie's work, her favorite weapon of choice has always been poison, and this is where she learned that knowledge. So, and then her husband came home from the war, and she had been rejected constantly by publisher, and she finally got her first Poirot book published, and from then on it was no stopping her. So, and then the husband, I don't think he was happy that his wife was successful, because, think about British life in the 1920s as a man, when your wife is the breadwinner and you've got to stay at home and take care of your daughter. So he was not nice to her. He was very abusive, and she disappeared for 11 days. I don't know if people know this story about her.
No, I didn't know the story.
Yeah, so this what happened about 27, 28 or so, and she just disappeared one day for 11 days. No one could find her. A nationwide search went out, and she was discovered 11 days later at a hotel, and she claimed she had amnesia. And she underwent all this psychotherapy and all this stuff, and to her dying days, she never said what happened during those 11 days. And a lot of people really criticized her as doing this as a publicity stunt for her career. But there are two speculations about this, and neither of them can be proved. The obvious one is that her husband was nasty, and she basically because they did get divorced shortly after that. Yeah. So that's the prevailing theory, is that she just kind of had a breakdown and just had to get away from him. The other one, of course, is that Agatha has always had, characters that are they might be lesbians. So there was speculation that Agatha herself might have had, disappeared for a little romantic liaison. But again, that is pure speculation, and that has never, ever, there's no evidence to that. It's just, reading some of her books, she definitely included some vague references to women who definitely could be interpreted as lesbian. So there's just speculation. I think it was more trying to get away from the husband. So, but they did get divorced. In the settlement, she was allowed to keep his last name, because he didn't want her to be Christie anymore, but she had been established as Agatha Christie.
Do you know what was her maiden name? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay.
I'd have to go back.
I should have looked it up too.
That's okay. I know way too much about Agatha Christie. Yeah. But then she ended up. So when she was young, her family, she did come from an affluent family, and they used to travel to Egypt for health reasons. That dry desert area was very popular with rich British people. Mm-hmm. And she just enjoyed archaeology, and so she started just going on these archaeology trips. She was funding some of them because she was rich. She met a guy who was an archaeologist who was 15 years younger than her. And they got married. Yeah, they got married. And that has also led to speculation that it was just a marriage of convenience. But again, pure speculation, no idea. But as a result, she accompanied him on a lot of trips, and of course, exposure to, being in Egypt that's how she ended up writing Death on the Nile. So, and then of course, to get there, you have to take a train, and that's the Orient Express, and there may be murder on it. So a lot of what her life was, she did incorporate into her books. I think she wrote, don't quote me on this, I think 66 novels. Wow. And then a ton of short stories, most are about Poirot and Miss Marple. And then she actually had another, it was Tommy and Tuppence, I think that was their name. It was like a young couple that they never really caught on. I think there was only a couple stories with them, but the biggie is Poirot, obviously, and then Miss Marple is a close second. So.
And good for her for not like using a pseudonym or using a name where like just her initials make people think that it was a man writing this.
Well, and I don't think she knew better. You know, if she was really brought up in a fairly I don't want to say ignorant way, but she did come from an affluent family, and I think she was brought up in this world where she just didn't know better. And I think not using her name just wasn't an idea. And it was only after she got successful did a lot of the criticism about how you're a woman writer trying to compete in a man's world, and that's ultimately what brought us to And Then There Were None, because it literally was this perfect. And again, I'm trying to not ruin anything about how it's constructed. And if you read the book does have a bit of a different ending, just because it has to of how it's explained.
Right.
In the stage version, everything has to be explained on stage. Where the book there's kind of an epilogue that goes back and explains everything. But it's good. So,
And now this is like your trifecta, because first there was It's Murder Mary.
Oh, look right there.
Oh, look.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Who was in that show? Who played
and
a
then you
character
did
there?
Clue, which was kind of like another version of of the whodunit murder mystery. And now you're actually doing the real honest to goodness version.
Oh yeah, I've ripped off Agatha Christie twice already. I might as well honor her and actually do it properly. And that was why when I looked into it and discovered that there was this original ending, which is interesting to call it the original ending because it's really the revised ending of the play, but it's the original ending of the book. And I had read the book years ago and loved the book. That was really what that kind of like tipped the scales for me. Is the ending that she wrote originally for the stage version, it has a little bit of a Hollywood roll your eyes element to it. But I understand why she did that, and that was her choice. That wasn't her being pressured by producers or anything. She just thought, hey, it's 1943, it's World War II. Let's give people a little bit of hope. So.
And the little figurines now are soldiers.
Soldiers, yes. It takes place on Soldier Island. Yep.
And they've changed, with every version, they've changed the island that it's on to reflect what the little figurines were.
Yes.
And also what they called it with the title, except for And Then There Were None.
Yes. Yeah. Well, her original title was always And Then There Were None. That's what she wrote it for. It was publishers that she worked with that used alternate titles, including one we're not going to talk about. But most people know this story as 10 Little Indians.
Right.
Yeah. So when I've told my friends, I said, I'm doing this play. It's called And Then There Were None. Oh, what's it about? And then I kind of describe it. And they're like, wow, that sounds like 10 Little Indians. And I'm like, let me explain. Yeah, okay. So that story came about when an American publisher got the rights to it. They changed it to that because they thought that would sound better, because at that time, cowboy movies were very, very popular. So they thought having a title like that would appeal more to American audiences. Now, since Agatha Christie's son controls the estate, it's no longer published. It is only available as And Then There Were None. So it has not been published under 10 Little Indians for, I want to say 20 years now, but there's still a lot of people out there that know it as that. A couple of the movie versions have used that.
Right.
There's a good movie version from about 1950 that's And Then There Were None, and I think the other ones are 10 Little Indians, and there's one, oh my God, it's from the 70s. It's set in the Swiss Alps. It is just trash upon trash. It's fun. It's if you know Dave Durbin, he would love it. Yes. So, hi Dave.
Hi Dave.
But yeah, I watched it, and it's just so bad. It's fun. It's fun bad, but it does not hold a candle to No, there is a BBC version that came out a couple years ago that does have the ending we're doing. But I have not seen that. I heard it was good, and
Is it recent?
It's recent. Yeah, I want to say 2018.
Oh, wow.
It was like a 3-part miniseries, and I've been meaning to watch it, and I just haven't gotten around. Not that we had a pandemic where we sat around for 2 years.
Yeah, right.
But I just never actually. I heard it was good. And several of the people in the cast have seen it, because we were talking about, especially there's one death scene that apparently is very over the top in that version. Ours, it's a little more subtle.
You subtle?
I know.
I won't believe it until I actually see it with my own eyes.
Well, let's just say there's one part in the play that's definitely not subtle. Yes.
But all along, the poem remains the same. Always.
Yes.
That's consistently always the same.
Yes.
It's always the same little rhyme.
Yes,
that was
yes.
written as that poem is a little like a nursery rhyme.
Yeah, it's a nursery rhyme from about the mid 1800s. So now it's rewritten slightly. If you can go online and find the poem, but it's a little different from what she used. She did take the poem and kind of adapted a couple of the lines to fit more, the plot. But it's very, very similar. It's 10 little soldier boys went out. 10 little soldier boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. And then 9 little soldier boys staying up too late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. And then, of course, down
and
the list.
countdown.
And the countdown starts.
And the original play version was actually a 3-act, right? But you're shortening it down a little bit?
Yeah. So we're not shortening it. We're just, it's 5 scenes. So instead of doing, the first scene is the longest, because that sets up all the characters and why they've been invited to Soldier Island and all that stuff. And then the rest of the were Act 2 and then Act 3. We've just put our intermission at what would have been Act 2, Scene 1, which is I think for modern audiences is a really perfect ending, because it's the killer is one of us moments. And that's the other thing too about this story is I'm not a big fan of director notes in programs, but I thought with this one I did them because and they start out by saying, you've seen this story before. Even if you haven't seen And Then There Were None, the whole idea of a group of strangers coming together, and then there's a killer killing them. I mean, what is that? Scream,
right?
Knives Out, Friday the 13th.
Yep.
I mean, but this is the original. She's the one that invented that concept. And I would think that in the 3-act structure, that reveal doesn't really happen till the middle of the 2nd act. And I thought that is the perfect place where modern audiences, where we can stop the show. Everyone's going to know. Once you have these 10 people, actually there are 11 people in the play. So, and I think I just spoiled something. Okay. Not everyone dies. Okay. But I mean, once they start dropping, it's like, that it's, and of course the poem is there, it's a countdown. And again, that people know that. And my idea with this is that, and this is why, doing it in June, this is so funny. As much as this is a play about murder, it's a really light and fun piece of theater. And that's how we've kind of gone into it, is we're not trying to create high art. We're trying to create an evening of entertainment that it's fun. If you don't know the story, if you don't know the ending, it'll be kind of fun to try to figure it out. There are definitely clues. We've been having a lot of, me as a director, I've been playing Hitchcock so much. And there's a couple parts of like just how I'm staging people. It's a little melodramatic, but I don't care. It's my chance to do this. So, but there's definitely like, there's lots of clues that are both real and
red herrings.
And red herrings, yes. That is in the poem. Yeah, a red herring swallowed one. Yeah, that is in the poem. So, and I'm not going to tell you whether or not the red herring is a red herring. So it's been a lot of fun, and the cast. It's just a great cast. We've been all getting along really well.
You've got a great cast. Too.
Oh,
talk about scenery chewers. Every single one of your cast members is tried and true. Now, is there anybody that's new that you haven't worked with?
There's one guy. Yes, his name is Malcolm. He's a UW student. He is new. I had never never seen him before. He came to auditions, did a great job. And I'm like, is he really as good as it? So I'm like, okay, Malcolm, can we just like get to know each other? Let's just, go have a drink. And he's 21, so it's okay.
Good.
So we went down to Cooper's Tavern for like one drink, which turned into like, 2:00 in the morning. And I joked with him. I'm like, I came down here to fire you. Because I'm like, I don't know. I've had people who can give a good audition, but then they can't. He can act. He can definitely act. So, and he does not read as 21. He's the youngest in the cast, but there's a character who's younger than him in the show. But and he's just perfect for the part. He absolutely is just perfect. And then everybody, I've got Stephanie Monday and Dennis Yaden and Scott Stanley and Scott Bennett and Sarah Beth Honor. It's just like this Brian Royston. Is then I could just go down the whole list and all that stuff. So who's the one person I forgot? Carl Reinhardt is. I'm like, who's gonna get mad at me because I forgot their name? So Sarah Patrick. Okay. I think it's all of them. So
Carl gets to die again.
So I'm not saying he does or not. Okay. I'm not saying he does or not.
Or you have to buy a ticket and see if Carl bites the big one again.
Yep. So yeah, Carl was in It's Murder Mary, and I killed him off 10 minutes into the show.
Right at the very beginning of the show.
Yes. He died right away, like literally within 10 minutes. He was dead, and then sat backstage the whole time. So, and that was his idea. He wanted that part. So yeah. So, but no, it was fun. It's been fun rehearsing it, and I have a great crew as well. And the set, it's a very minimalistic set. It's this is old school theater. If you think of when this play came out, they didn't even have like recorded sound. The sound effects were made by people backstage, rattling things, and at least now we have a MacBook with sound effects. But I think there's like 4 sound cues. And then, we're going to add in some more and some atmospheric stuff and all that. But really, it's very old school theater. And and we've tried to do that. There's even some of the British slang has been a lot of fun. We've had to look up so many words where it's like one of the guys, one of the young characters, he's always talking about wizard. Everything is wizard. Oh. And it's like, was that a thing? Well, that must have been a slang thing in England in the 1930s. And when I first read it, I'm like, oh, I got to change that. That just sounds... And then we read it, and it works. It's funny, and I figure, we have to get laughs while we can get laughs. And I would say, actually, Act 1, there's a lot of humor in it. And some of it might be a little bit of the high camp of that British, drawing room style dialogue, and I left all that in. I didn't change any of that stuff, and I felt why, and I put a little note there that this, and I'm gonna get knocked for this one. I told they do have British accents, but I told them do British light. And yeah, my philosophy is, again, this isn't high art. I want to make sure the audience understands the dialogue first, and I know I'm going to get knocked for that one, and I don't care. But yeah, I have a friend of mine who's British. He's already told me that he's not going to like the accents, so no matter what, and I'm okay with that. So, but I think the accents are fine. I think they're authentic. It's a good mix. Because they're supposed to be a bunch of strangers from all over England.
Right, they're not all from one place.
No, and that's a big thing that a lot of people have to remember is, some have stronger accents than others. That's actually by choice. They're supposed to be, some of them are more from city, some are more upper class, some are lower class, and not everybody obviously is who they say. That's a thing. Is there's one line of dialogue that is a little cringy, and all I can say is it's a lie. That's the only hint I'm going to give you.
Okay.
Because I read that line and I'm like, do we need? And then I thought about it and I'm like, well, it's actually a lie. I'm going to leave it in. So if anyone complains, I can tell them in the lobby.
There you go.
Did you pick it up? There's your one clue.
So it's kind of like watching Ted Lasso.
Kind of,
it's
yes.
Like, sometimes you think, what the hell did they just say?
Yeah.
You're like, we've gone back to after we watch the final,
Yeah.
we've gone back to the very beginning, and now we're doing it with subtitles.
Yeah.
Because some of the times, I mean, number one, they're rapid fire.
That's rapid, yeah.
And number two, some of the accents are so thick, and it's like, and then all of a sudden you think, what? And it's going on. So it's like, oh, wait a minute. So now we're subtitling, it, but it's the same thing. It's
Well, yeah, and I thought, I'm not going to project surtitles over the screen, so let's just tell the actors, let's just pull back on the accents a little bit and make sure the dialogue, because it is a very talky play.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of talking, and as a result, to me, it's more important that the performances and the characters and their motivations and the truths and the not truths. I mean, let's just admit, this is not a nice group of people. They're all guilty.
Right.
That's the whole premise of this, is they're all guilty of something. It's just a matter of figuring out why and who and what's going on. That's the fun part on that. So
cool.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. And tickets are on sale now, I'm assuming, because you're just now today loading into the theater. So
Yeah. I actually have escaped load-in thing. I'm doing what I do best at load-in, staying out of good people's way.
You're doing a lovely job of it, too, because you're right here with us.
My set designer, my lighting designer, my costume designer are all very happy right now, because I'm not there asking questions and pointing things out. So.
And I'm assuming this is upstairs in the jury.
Yeah,
right?
It does. Yeah. I would think so. There is one complicated effect that I don't think we could have pulled off in the EVU. There is one sequence that's it's complex.
What are the death sequences?
I'm not going to say.
Oh, you're not going to say. I can't get anything out of you.
Yeah. So it is complicated, and it's probably one of the most dangerous things that I have ever worked with in doing shows, and I want to make sure it's done safely and done right.
Is it dangerous for having Scott Bennett under a chandelier falling on top of him?
Oh, that was nothing. That was nothing. She could take that chandelier like a trooper. So, we don't have any chandeliers falling on people, which is ironic because we did in Clue. There was also a chandelier falling in Clue, and I had to milk that joke forever to do that. So, cause I'm like, how do we drop a chandelier on somebody? At least, that was I was thinking about that. And I'm like, at least I don't have to do a chandelier drop with this one. So, I've got something even more complicated to do.
Oh, nice.
So, the chandelier drop was easy compared to this one.
And now, if this isn't so running in Britain anywhere, is it? In London?
I mean, it's
like Mousetrap. Mousetrap is the longest running.
Yeah, Mousetrap has been running consistently since 1952, other than the COVID shutdown. So Mousetrap is in its 70th year. In fact, did you know the movie versions of the Mousetrap were sold to a movie producer with the stipulation he can't make a movie until the play has been closed for 6 months. His grandson now owns the rights to the movie version and still can't do anything about it because the Mousetrap is still running. Yeah, since 1952. It's the longest running play in history.
Did you try to do something sneaky during COVID and saying, well, it's not running for 2 years?
Yeah, you wonder about that. Yeah. No, we did. It's back up and running. So with no signs of stopping and all that.
That's amazing. That's like fantastic.
Well, and it is. And I would say that these two plays are very, very similar in tone. Both of them are set, at this remote, mansion-like location. A large cast of people. We have more deaths. We're closer to Friday the 13th.
That's true.
Than to me, this is kind of like an artistic Friday the 13th. But it's obviously people continue to do productions of this, but no, this is not a long-running play like when it originally came out, it ran for many, many years. And I think the success of this is what ultimately got the Mousetrap. That she could prove that, because the Mousetrap was an original story, that wasn't based on a novel. She wrote that specifically for the stage, where this one obviously was an adaptation of her book.
And what was the time spread between them? Do you know? Offhand?
Let me think about this one. So this came out in 43 on stage, and Mousetrap was 52, so 9 years later.
Oh, okay.
And she had a couple other plays, and then I know she wrote one Witness for the Prosecution. I think that was written as a movie. I don't think that was ever a stage play. She had a couple other plays. There have been other adaptions of stuff, but nothing like The Mousetrap and then There Were None. Those are really her two magnum opis. What's the plural of opus? So here's a little trivia on that. So Poirot, so Christie did not like Poirot. She didn't. She thought he was pretentious and arrogant, and she purposely wanted to turn her audience off so she could stop writing Poirot stories. So she wrote Poirot to be more obnoxious, more fussy, more difficult, more annoying. And the more she did that, the more they loved it. Yes. And ultimately, she turned into this, if you can't beat them, join them mentality. And then she wrote, and really cranked out Poirot. She wrote his final book. It's called Curtains. In, I want to say, the 50s or 60s, and then said, do not publish this till after I've died. So,
I did not know that.
Yeah. So it was locked away for at least 10, 20 years. And then she unfortunately got Alzheimer's. And she died, I want to say about 76, 77. So the publishers and her family decided to publish Curtains while she was still alive. Obviously, she wasn't aware of it at the time, but they did publish it. And so here's a spoiler I can give you. Poirot dies at the end of Curtains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was called Curtains, Poirot's Final Case.
Okay.
And when they published it, the New York Times actually published an obituary for Poirot. And to this date, it is still the only fictional character that's ever had an obituary in the New York Times.
Wow.
That's the power of Agatha Christie. So, yeah, that's what the notoriety of all that. So, but... yeah, I like Poirot, and obviously, if you've seen the David Suchet versions, he is just perfect.
Now, have there ever been any plays of the Poirot series?
Oh yeah. There are. They're not. I think there's stuff that's been written by other people. They're adaptions.
Okay.
I did some digging a long time ago when I was thinking about. I was thinking about doing the Mousetrap about 10 years ago, and it turned out UW Theater had the rights at that time, and so I ended up doing Woman in Black, which turned out pretty good. So I'm very happy. I'm actually very
great.
I'm very happy.
Show.
That's one of my all-time favorite shows I've done. And I looked at some stuff, and I don't know. I read some things, and I just wasn't taken for it. I read. There's been a bunch of recent plays based on Sherlock Holmes that have been really. They're fun. They're kind of light, fluffy. And I thought about that. I'm like, maybe this because it'd be fun to do like an old school play that would be just fun. I've done a lot of heavy stuff. I've done a lot of, not for kids stuff. Although recently now I've become the kids director.
Yes, that's true.
I've done 3 pantos. I'm writing the next panto. So it's a holiday panto, Charlie Brown. So Clue was pretty family friendly. I mean, I've basically have gotten pretty wholesome in my older years. So, but I kind of like that. And and again, it's hard to say that this place. I mean, this is PG-13. I would not, if I had a 10-year-old, I would not bring them to this play. So there's no swearing or anything like that. Well, somebody says hell, and he gets scolded by Stephanie Monday for saying hell. So, but the ending is pretty, and it's more psychological than gruesome. There's nothing like that. So,
plus, you're also, it is a very wordy play.
It is wordy, yeah.
And I think 10-year-olds would be like, well, where's the good stuff coming?
Yeah.
When's Shrek gonna blow boogers out of his nose?
Yeah, and I did Shrek last year. So another. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, we've done that. Yeah. So, but yeah. I mean, but I think it's fun. I think for people who have never seen Christie, it's a really good version of it. For people who have seen it, we do have this revised ending, and even people that have seen that, there are different ways of how we're doing the mystery. That's kind of my job as director, is I get to kill a bunch of actors. so part of it is we have the script, but then there is a little bit of leeway as to how we accomplish that. So, and that's been kind of fun and not really frustrating. Sometimes it's like, wait till tech week. Yeah, I need to see how the final set lays out before we figure out how to do that. So that's actually what I'll be doing tonight, is finalizing some murder.
Finalizing murder. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Good. Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your extraordinarily busy day.
Oh, well,
of staying away from the
the tech crew thanks you for doing this today. So,
and make sure you go and see it, and then the word numb, because it sounds incredibly exciting. And we will see you next week already.
Cool.
So happy Pride, everybody. Happy Pride.
Yep.
Thanks.
Well, thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jim. See you next time.